allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now it's showing. Oh, see, that's just one of the five symbols.
Okay, and then, so roll call.
I believe just Commissioner Rob is Austin.
Yes. You don't want the rest of us to stay here.
You can sit well.
I'm going to stay here if you like.
Whatever works for you.
I have it recorded.
Whatever works for you for the minutes. I guess I should use the microphone. Oral communications? None. Okay. Review and approval of the minutes. I have one very small thing. At the very end of the minutes, we talk about agenda items for the next meeting, and it says review of funding for public art, and I think that should be public art maintenance, shouldn't it? Yeah. So unless anybody else has something.
So just I'll do public, the maintenance at the end.
Yes.
I approve the minutes.
You make a motion.
Make a motion to approve minutes.
Second it.
Open the voting.
Okay.
It's not liking it today, but it's okay, you're fine.
Okay, perfect. So it was approved 6-0 August Austin.
Okay. Thank you. And moving on to new business, the first item is public art maintenance.
Thank you, Commissioners. Welcome. Good afternoon. My name is, for the record, is Rob Rose. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Services. And today we're going to be talking about public art maintenance more specifically. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reviewing the objectives of what we are looking to do. I'm going to be going over the roles and responsibilities, talking about the assessment and inspection process that you're going to be conducting. We're going to establish a couple of exceptions, those pieces that we will not be inspecting. We'll also be talking about the maintenance and preservation funding and how that's going to work, as well as ultimately you're going to be choosing from a series of options of assignments. And then I will be providing just a general recommendation as far as that is concerned. So, with regard to our objectives, specifically for art maintenance, is designed to inspect city-owned public artwork on a regular basis. We want to maintain that artwork that is safe and it contributes to the community. We are establishing a plan for longevity of the public art. We're looking to avoid costly repairs that may result from neglect, and that's why we want to be able to do this and catch this information, catch these problems or challenges early. Then we also are looking to identify funding sources for repair and maintenance ultimately. So, in general, let's talk about those roles and responsibilities. The artist is responsible right now for maintaining the artwork for a specified period of time of 5 years. This is what we write into all of our agreements. So that is something that we do. That allows the city and the Public Art Commission to be able to get a hold and a handle of what might be necessary for us to be able to move forward, to be able to maintain that art, should it continue to be a part of our public art collection going forward. The next item is property owners, and that's to keep those areas around the artwork clean and well groomed. Please keep in mind, although that this is public art that is on private property, it is the responsibility of that property owner to maintain that. It does not be a responsibility of the city or the Public Art Commission to do so. We can make recommendations, we can reach out, we can make contact, but we cannot force them to do that. So I want to make that very clear. Then next, the roles and responsibilities for city staff are to maintain a public art inventory, to schedule maintenance and repairs, funding, pending funding availability. So again, that is all heavily dependent on whether or not we will have money available for us to be able to repair any type of artwork. A lot of the stuff that is relatively small is relatively easy for us to be able to do so. But some of those projects that might be a little bit larger might be a little bit more challenging. We're going to have to really take a look at how do we fund that. So those projects or those artwork that I'm talking about would be like our Queen Califia, would also be the community piece on the corner of Iris and Valley Parkway. And then lastly, the roles and responsibility of the Public Art Commission is to conduct periodic inspections and report to the Public Art Administrator. Just a general term, basically right now it means me. You're going to report that to me, and I'm going to do what I can to make sure that the maintenance and repair work gets done. And then we work on a prioritization list and be able to move that forward. Assessment and inspection. So what we are looking to do is to inventory all of our public artwork. Right now, that is a process. As you know, when I first started and I was working with Jennifer as well as Sandra, who's here in the audience with me, this is a continuous, ongoing process. We are finding regularly there is additional public art that is out there. We're working to identify whether or not that public art is public art on public property or if it's public art on private property. But we're working towards that. You have seen previously, and we are continuing to work within this scope, to allow that electronic version that you saw previously, where you can identify where all of those locations are, and we're continuously adding to that. So I've chosen not to provide and present that to you today. We are, again, continuing to work on that with Francisco, who is the staff member who's responsible for it, because there's some additional items that we want to add to it. And so it's a continuous, ongoing process for us. We also want to make sure that we are falling in line with the Public Art Strategic Plan. That was something that you, as the Public Art Commission, adopted on the May 20th meeting. And so right now, that actually will be going to City Council for full adoption next week. So September 18th, it will go to them for the adoption of that particular item. So we want to make sure that we're following the guidelines that are within the Public Art Strategic Plan. And then generally, we are going to be using a brand new public art inspection form. You can kind of see the basics of what that looks like there on the right-hand side. We will be providing that to you, but the hope, and again, this is why I did not present to you the electronic inventory, is because we want to be able to digitize this form. So you just simply click on that, input the information. You don't have to write it down on a piece of paper, taking a clipboard out there and identifying what needs to be done. The goal is to have it completely digitized sometime within the next month or so. Then what we're going to do is we're going to identify those items that are excellent, good, fair, and critical. Critical obviously being those items that are most in need of repair and or maintenance, and then it kind of goes up from there. And there is a specific criteria. That specific form is in your packet. So if you'd like to take a look at it, it is in your packet to see what that criteria actually is. We do have a couple of exceptions, and generally, as I have previously mentioned, previously assigned agreements for review or existing agreements that are in place. So the existing agreements might be the artist agreements that we have, that they're required to maintain that piece for 5 years. That would be one of those exceptions. We would not be reviewing or assessing any of those. Those items that might be inaccessible or unsafe to be able to take a look at. The one that comes to mind that is actually called out specifically as an exception is the new leaf sculpture on Center City Parkway. That's an exception. You as the council or the commission would not be assigned to go to take a look at that. That would be something that our Public Works Department would go to take a look at to assess that particular element. And then any of those that are privately funded on private property as well. So again, privately funded on private property. And so as you recall, what that means is when we receive public art dollars, we get those through development fees, and we get assigned a certain percentage of that. The developer has the option of deciding whether or not they want to, instead of providing money to the city to be able to put in our public art fund, they have the ability to actually put together a public art in their private development. And so we would, again, not be responsible for that. That would be the responsibility of the developer, but ultimately the holder of that public art item. Whether it's Palomar Heights, so it would be the developer that would be there, or it would be, let's say, an HOA or something along those lines. They would be the ones that would be responsible for maintaining that. The other exception is the Queen Califia Magical Circle. Queen Califia is really an international draw, as we all know. And so we would not necessarily need any of the commission to be able to step up to review that. We have a number of docents that are there 2 to 3 times a week, as well as city staff that frequent that location. And so what we're doing there is we're taking note of that. And then kind of as a side note, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on in my liaison report, we are actually going to be meeting with the foundation coming up within the next couple of weeks as well to work on assistance. So, as far as the maintenance and preservation funding is concerned, obviously there's a number of funding constraints. One of the biggest challenges is that we cannot take public art funds that were given to us through developer fees to utilize for maintenance and upkeep. That is prohibited by state law. We are not allowed to do that. So when you accepted the public art strategic plan at the May meeting and made the request to the city council to make those adjustments within the public art fund, which adjusted all those accounts, even though there was money in one of those accounts that specifically called out public art maintenance, actually was not allowable. And so as a result, we had to make that adjustment and shift those monies into another location. We are also looking at the city can do some limited repair work. We have done that previously, and we will look at still doing that. And that can be built into the into the Public Works Department to be able to do that, and or possibly the Community Services Department for to do that as well.
Can you back up to?
What you were just talking about that what we thought was going to be funds for maintenance is no longer?
So what I'm referring to is at the May 20th meeting, when you accepted the Public Art Strategic Plan,
Yeah.
you also, as a commission, made a recommendation to the City Council to make adjustments to the individual accounts in the Public Art Fund. So the Public Art Fund had approximately 10 to 12 different individual accounts. One of those accounts outlined specifically public art maintenance. Unfortunately, that public art maintenance account was funded through the development fees that we collect. State law prohibits us from using those fees from doing any type of any type of maintenance or repair work on those items.
Okay, thank you. I remember that now. Yeah.
Sure.
Robert, where did that money go then when we reallocated it?
Well, there was a number of different funds or accounts that within that fund that were reallocated, and they went to a variety of different things, mostly to support your annual work plan for the 24-25 fiscal year, which would include the roundabout, the creek trail, the murals, as well as some of your smaller items as well. Okay. So again, limited repair work, the city can do some of that limited repair work. We have in the past, and we will hopefully be able to continue to do so. That funding, though, will be taken out of the department's operational fund. whether that operational fund is through the community services department or it is through the public works department, that's what we would be doing. So that is one potential strategy. The other strategy would be the deaccession. And that is also one of those items that happens to be on your annual work plan. And we're actually going to be discussing that a little bit later today to deaccession one of the public art projects that we have. So that allows us to be able to completely remove that item either by returning it to the artist possibly, or being able to dispose of it as the city sees necessary, depending on what the original agreement was. So, for example, also if it happens to be a mural on a public building, we can just simply paint over it back to its original color type of thing. Other funding alternatives, there is a variety of them, and our department will continue to look at that along with you as the Public Art Commission. That can include grant funding, that can include scholarships, that can include sponsorships. So there's a variety of ways for us to be able to do that. And we are in the process of exploring some of those right now. I don't have any specific details for you on it at this time, however. We just haven't had the capacity to be able to really dive any more into it, but we are and will be meeting with the Nikki Foundation as one of those as a first step, and we do have a couple of other opportunities as well through potential grants. So once that information comes available, I will absolutely make sure that you are well informed of what we're going to be doing to be able to move forward with that maintenance and preservation.
A question with funding. Did we discuss the street banners on Grand as a potential funding source for maintenance too?
Yes, that was one of those ideas that did actually come up. Right now, between Memorial Day and Veterans Day, we have the hero banners that are up. And then from Veterans Day through the end of the holiday season, we have holiday banners that will go up as well. So the only time that would be available would be after the holidays up until Memorial Day. The challenge that we have with that, and that's something that we are exploring, is that the cost of actually putting those up, because our Public Works Department would not be doing that. They're not the ones that actually put that up. We go through a contractor to be able to do that. Depending on how many we have, it could be a little bit costly for us. So it may be more of like a break-even type situation than an actual like funding type situation. But that is an option that we are also exploring. So as far as assignment options, we have 3 options that are available, and that is option 1. You may appoint up to 4 commissioners to be responsible for conducting inspections of the public art collection as assigned by the public art administrator, which is me. Option 2 would be to appoint up to 4 commissioners to be responsible for conducting those inspections based on type of art. So that would be like everybody that does murals would be one. Everybody that does sculptures would be another one. Our Escondido expression stigma boxes would be another one, and then the last one would potentially be any type of other art medium that we have. And then finally, the other option, option 3, would be appoint 1 commissioner for each of the different council districts, with the understanding there, it says no public art in District 2, but there's actually one piece that happens to be a Escondido expressions utility box. So unfortunately, District 3 and District 2 are very light on public art. So what you're looking for, District 1 and District 2, not District 3. District 1 and District 2 are very light on public art, whereas District 3 houses the majority, and District 4 has some as well.
Are we voting on that?
You will be in just a moment. So the other thing I do want to note, those asterisks that are up there, is because there are going to be 4 commissioners, that ultimately up to 4 commissioners that are assigned, they may not meet together outside of a public meeting, a publicly noticed meeting. So again, just making sure that we are staying in compliance with the Brown Act. Okay. So.
I'm sorry, may I ask you a question? On number 1, it's up to the discretion to conduct inspection. the difference between option 1 and 2?
So what would be is, it would be like, for me as the public art administrator, I would basically divide out all of our public art, assign it as evenly as I possibly can. I would probably try to assign it so that it was relatively close to where your residence is, so you don't have to necessarily go very far, and try to do it as equitably as possible.
That's
in
option
that
1.
regard.
That's option 1.
That would be option 1. Option 2 you would be assigned, let's say, Commissioner Ryan being sitting on the Escondido Expression Subcommittee, if you want to be a part of this, you would maybe just be responsible for all the Escondido Expression's utility boxes.
Thank you.
Sure. And ultimately, the recommendation is to request that the Public Art Commission select one of those options for implementation and assign the commissioners to fulfill those roles. I am at the conclusion of my presentation, and I am open to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Robert. Commissioners, I'd really like to hear what you think about this. I personally think that option 1, where we are clustering based on, or assigning locations based on clusters of art, makes more sense than any of the others. I also think that, I don't like the idea of Escondido Expressions evaluating Escondido Expressions. Not that they wouldn't do a good job. I just think you look at things with fresh eyes if you didn't roll it out. So I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks.
Carol, if you weren't on the commission like years ago, some of us remember that we did start doing this by zip code. Do you remember that? They assigned us. Anyway, I was pretty strong about reporting things. Unfortunately, nothing happened at that point, but we were divided up on the zip codes, which made it very convenient because you drive by some of this art on a daily basis, so you do see changes. And I personally like option 1.
One other question that I had to Robert on, have you developed this system yet for how something rolls from artist responsibility into a commissioner needs to be monitoring a piece? Have you developed that system yet?
There we go. That's a great question, and the answer is no, we haven't quite gotten there yet.
Okay.
That's another part of this process that we're going to have to do over the course of the next month or so. We're going to need to identify what agreements we still have with those artists and where they are in that 5-year term. So once we're able to do that, then we're able to get a much clearer understanding of what pieces are the ones that need to be assessed and inspected to see what condition they're actually in and move forward from there.
And I suppose, now that I've asked that question, we need to be looking at them all anyway, even during that initial 5 years. And I think that we also talked at one point, or questioned, what if an artist doesn't take care of the repair? We really have no recourse. I guess we need, in the language, we have the option to, I suppose, give them a length of time to correct. And then we would take it over, take whatever action we feel is necessary.
I would say, in response to your question, that would be accurate. Because while we ask that they maintain that piece for up to a 5-year period of time, the reality is there is no enforcement mechanism as far as if they don't comply with that.
But we have to have the right to act.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so that would, if we find that the piece, there's some correction that needs to be done, some minor repair work, some touch-up, whatever it might be, we can reach out to that artist and request that they, follow up with that. Now, the challenge would be is, let's say the artist has now moved out of the area and they have retired to, Arizona, And so I don't think they're going to be making the 5-hour trek to Escondido to do some minor touch-up work. So then it would be the responsibility of our team at the city, and then with the oversight of the commission to determine how best do we move forward with that. What's our process? What's our policy? Are we just going to take that on and say, absolutely, we'll do it? Or do we say, I'm sorry if the artist can't do it, we can't continue to maintain it, and now it needs to get painted over or removed or what?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you.
Robert, I have a question. One of the pieces of art that I've been observing has been ruined, even, I say ruined, it's been basically vandalized enough to the point that it's starting to look very unhealthy, shabby, unhealthy, unkept. And when I was looking closely at that art, thinking if we were to move it, it would be a structural problem because you need a good base. But at the same time, I'm talking about the triangle one, by Barnes and Nobles. At the same time, you could just take the triangle part of it, which is really quite beautiful, doesn't require any maintenance, and move it and put it on the side of a building where it's secure, and I think it wouldn't cost the city much money to do that, rather than decommission it and get rid of it altogether. So I'm wondering, is this something that's available, is to look at it from a creative basis on how you could best utilize that art still by making small modifications?
I love the creativity to that response, and that's an excellent way to be able to continue to preserve a well-known and important piece in the city while repurposing it and maintaining it. Unfortunately, I cannot speak to the costs that might be associated with that. That would be something that would need to come from our public works department to determine what does that actually look like. While we might think that's a minimal cost, there may be some other costs that are hidden in there that I am unfamiliar with because it's not my area of expertise. So I'm absolutely all for looking at things creatively. And then of course, before we did anything, it would be a matter of coming before the commission to have that conversation, providing you with all of that information, what those costs might look like, what building that would potentially go toward or go on, and then kind of go from there. Because I do know that piece in particular, it's been a number of years since it's been up, quite a few years. We reached out to the artist a few years ago, before my time serving with the commission, and the artist is not interested in maintaining that any longer, so I believe that would be at our discretion how we would want to manage that.
You mentioned earlier that at some point we'll be like trying to catalog all public pieces of art, whether it be on public property or private property. Is that something down the line we kind of tackle this process and then maybe you start integrating different pieces of art, or is that something like a Pokemon, like you gotta catch them all, like you go look and like you're looking at all the buildings on a certain street one day and then you move on to the next street? I guess that's going to be a whole different process entirely.
So we're actually going through that process right now. We have identified a significant number of public art pieces, and we are still in the process of continuing to identify a number of public art pieces. So I would say that it's an ongoing process. We have a good solid inventory right now of what that collection actually looks like. But I know that things, as we are cleaning out not just our physical files, but our electronic files within our department, we're like, oh, that's a piece we didn't know that we had, so we probably need to add that. And let's go take a picture and identify it. So these things are coming out on a relatively regular basis for us. So it's an ongoing process.
That site is not yet live, is it?
It is not totally live yet, but we do have access to it. And so we will likely be going live sometime within the next month, because what we want to do, we want to have it coincide with the update to the public art webpage that we have on our new website the city.
Robert, I have a couple of questions. Do you have a number of how many pieces of art that we would be looking at? Like 25, 50, 100?
Like in totality, or like
in
each
totality,
individual
other
piece?
than murals, say?
I don't have a number right off the top.
I'm just trying to get a picture of
Right,
what
but I totally
it's like
completely
if we're
understand that.
40
I think it's in the hundreds, isn't it?
Total, we have, I would estimate 40 with the Escondido.
But not including murals, right? Okay, so we're estimating right now 40, but not including murals. So you can imagine, like, this being a very heavy mural city, there are a substantial number of public art items.
I like option one in that where people can brainstorm over, you know, that looks good, or that can be fixed. Have you ever thought of doing it this way? We can go back to Robert and see if it can, I'm thinking of the triangle one, which is a pretty awesome piece and a pretty awesome place, I think. But, I mean, I appreciate the, and understand that there may be some other options too, and that's great. And that's part of the brainstorming I'd like to hear about. Yeah, and so if there's only 40, or, you know, at least we could take a chunk at a time and just go at it, because it's going nowhere unless we do. The other thing that you and I talked about a little bit, there was 2 items, possibly 3. One, Lorelei, which is up where the theater is, which is the mermaid that's buried in the shrubbery. Yeah. So you had said that something like that would not probably even cost anything if we can get the owner to agree to cut the shrubbery around it. That's an awesome piece and a really good place if we can do something like that. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer. And then what was the other one? Oh, I can't talk about the community, but the one, the mosaic is on 4th and Date, which it was one of our first public art pieces. The second one is kind of twinned, is over in the Children's Museum covered up. But right now on Date, the vines are covering that, and that's another public art, public utilities, public, something that the city could do to cut the vines back to keep it from disappearing completely. I mean, and some of these things we can just look at and say, okay, this is what we can do. Is this a solution? And, you know, it can just be done
Right.
quicker.
Absolutely, and the nice thing about doing the inspections, if some of our pieces are still in really great, amazing condition, because they were designed to withstand the test of time, right? And so really it would just be on us to maybe do some minor cleaning on them, brush them off type of thing, cut the landscaping around them to make sure that, you know, they're show ready, if you will.
Well, I want some clarification. So we can't get together with the other folks, right?
So that would be accurate. There's 4 of you. That would be against the Brown Act. So we would not be able to all gather together.
But even if there
except
were
for
3 or 2.
in a public meeting setting such as this.
Yeah, how about 2 groups of 3?
So the challenge with that is that we also need to be careful that we're not establishing what's called a serial meeting. That is also against the Brown Act, right? So it's when basically, and I'm sure Serena can talk a little bit more on this as she's from the city clerk's office more versed, but basically what you're talking about is, you know, say Commissioner Paul and Commissioner Ryan would get together and they would talk, and then all of a sudden they would, one person from their group would get together with Commissioner Rogers and Commissioner Span, and they would talk. You've now established a serial meeting, and that is actually
Something so easy becomes so hard.
Yes. Sounds so evil. My other clarification is for the items that Patricia was just enumerating, each one would have to have the maintenance application filled out, right?
Correct, but as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we are looking to digitize that, and that would be a part of the whole package that we would send you. I would send you information, say, these are your items that we want you to look at, and if you click this particular link, it will have all the information there for you to be able to do, so you can do it directly on your smartphone. Or if you would prefer to do, and I'm happy to hand you the physical form, although in this digital day and age, I would recommend against it, but I do have it because you never know. I mean, with the way things are going in cyber attacks and whatnot, things may go down, and we do have to have.
Oh, don't say things like
Sorry.
This was a question I had hoped to ask before someone in the audience left. We have had interest from service groups to help us with public maintenance. I mean, with public art maintenance. And one of the things that I think might be easy, if allowed, would be to clear foliage from around sculptures and things like that, if it isn't a challenge with public works rules and things like that. This would be a volunteer effort. And one club has said that they would be willing to be assigned specific things that they would work in tandem with us to keep things clean or trimmed. So I don't know whether that's an option.
That is absolutely an option. What we would do is much like what we're working on with our Escondido Creek Trail, you can adopt a section of the Escondido Creek Trail. We would set up a program to where it would be adopt a public art piece is what we could do. And then what we would do is I would have our volunteer coordinator work with those particular groups to provide them with the information that they need, as well as all the tools necessary, if that's what their need is, to be able to go out and be able to do that in coordination with our public works department. So
I love this idea. It would, if we had, could we give 5 options to say that Kiwanis or whoever is looking to do this and say, you know, this is what would be your, one might be $50,000, one might be $2,000, you know, and what would be your adopt a
The people I've been talking to want to provide service, not money. And it's not that we won't get money, but they, like, this particular, one of the Rotary clubs that I've spoken to recently did some planting along the Creek Trail in front of the neighborhood health building. And, you know, it's, you know, when you physically do work and you can see the results of your work, it's very rewarding. Sometimes that's the kind of service that you want to be. I know that you want us to vote, and we're kind of getting off on a tangent. How do we move forward to continue the discussion about how we develop partnerships for maintaining art? Do we need to put this on as a future agenda item to continue the conversation? What do we do?
So I think there's 2 paths that we can take here. One path is you can still vote on the assignments and the direction you want to go. And what I'm hearing is you probably sound like you want to do option 1. And then with that, we would place then also an item on the next commission meeting, an agenda item on the next commission meeting to talk about partnerships and adoption of public art. And we could have that ready for you.
So, commissioners, do we want to talk some more about these assignments and how we think it should go? Or shall we make a motion for a vote on option 1?
I agree with option 1. I think we just need volunteers, right, Robert?
Correct. So we would vote on option 1, and then from there, we would look at who among you would you like to appoint to this process. Or if you wanted to wait to think about it a little bit more, you're more than welcome to do that as well.
But could you put those options back on our screen here? Option 1, 2, and 3.
I'm leaning towards option 1.
The other thing you can do, if you really feel strongly, you can table the item to the next meeting. That would not be my recommendation, because it sounds like everybody is pretty much in agreement.
Any more discussion? I am going to make a motion that we choose option 1.
And that motion, second.
Can we go ahead and open voting? You're okay. And that was not. You weren't getting that. I did. So it was approved 6-0, August passed it. For motion, option 1.
Thank you. We have volunteers.
Volunteer.
Okay.
I'm going to note it.
What?
I'll make the notes as we go on.
Okay, so
This is, but there's an exception. I think it should be within zip code areas.
well, we'll have to negotiate with our public art administrator on that.
I mean, I don't want to be going to Palomar Mountain, but
I think he'll do that. I think that that's the plan, that he'll try and get it close to where we live. So we have 2 volunteers. Anybody else? Commissioner Span. Yeah.
If that's all the volunteers we have, I can work with that too.
Oh, cool.
For clarity.
I'm struggling with volunteering. I feel like I want to do it because so much of the art is in downtown.
I'll put you as an alternate. How about that?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And is Commissioner Martinez, would you call it? No. Should I do this the first one?
I did.
Commissioner Span, Commissioner.
Me.
I did, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, no worries. And I'm flexible with location.
All right. Okay. So we need no other discussion or votes in that regard. We are good, and it's going to go on the agenda. All right. So the next deaccessioning Vinehenge. I learned how to say that word. Did you just hear me say that word correctly?
Good. Okay, so let's talk about public art deaccessioning. As you recall, one of the items within the public art strategic plan that was voted on at the May 20th meeting, one of the categories was deaccessioning. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit more today about what is deaccessioning, kind of the background on this particular piece. We're going to talk about the playground safety inspections. We are going to again talk about maintenance repair, some next steps, and what the staff recommendation is. So to refresh everybody's memory, deaccessioning is the process of removing an item from the listed holdings or collection of an entity or organization. So we're going to basically be removed from the collection. You would do that when you were considering a number of different items, and so that would include the poor quality or lack of value for the exhibit. That would also include the physical condition has deteriorated to where restoration is no longer practical or possible, and then safety risk and or concerns. So that's essentially what deaccessioning is. And so when we talk about the Vinehenge, there are a couple of background that I want to kind of go through before we talk a little bit more about the safety and concern with it. So Vinehenge itself replaced a different public art piece that was called Legacy. And that was essentially like kind of a treehouse style piece. Because that item was not able to be repaired, it could no longer be restored and it was going to need to be removed, essentially. So what they did was in 2004, actually in 2003, they did essentially a call for artists for this, and the piece was selected, NatureWorks was selected to do a piece in that particular spot. Public art funds were used as a part of that, and at the time, the structure met all playground safety standards. So I want to be clear, at the time, it met all of the playground safety standards for that particular time. However, over time, we've encountered a variety of different structural failures, and we've had to close that particular area. That area has actually been closed since last year, so 2023. That space has been stopped. So in looking at the Vinehenge space in particular, in February of 2023, the city's playground safety inspector conducted a review. We do have one in-house. He is certified nationally as a playground safety inspector, and as a result, he's the one who is responsible for going around and inspecting all of the city's playgrounds, and that's what he does. So he did inspect this particular piece in 2023, in February of that year, and unfortunately, it failed compliance, and there's a number of different reasons why it failed compliance. Because we were concerned that there may be some potential bias, what we did then to provide an independent playground inspector, we hired a company called Safe Park to conduct another safety review, and that was done in June of 2023. So in June of 2023, they conducted a review, and we, again, failed compliance. Their report is in your packet, so that is very clear that there's a number of different areas that it has failed. We reached out to the artists at that time to allow them an understanding of, unfortunately, these items have failed, and that we are looking to replace the accession, this particular structure. The original artist, NatureWorks, reached back out to the city and said that they felt that it was necessary for us to conduct an inspection with an inspection company that they have worked with in the past. So we wanted to make sure that we were responsive to the particular artist, and then we allowed the ProTech Building Services to conduct a safety review in December of 2023. It also failed compliance. And again, a lot of this is because playground safety standards have changed pretty dramatically in the last 20 plus years.
Did we have to pay for that ProTech inspection also?
We have paid for all of those inspections, obviously the in-house one, but yes, we did pay for the inspection, both for Safe Park and for ProTech. And you can see in some of the imagery here that's indicated there are a number of issues with those items. One, there was a structural issue where we actually had to completely remove a section of the body end. There's a variety of different missing pieces. There's welds that are no longer holding within the slide. One of the issues that we had, it was in, I want to say it was in 2014, I believe it was, according to your packet, wherein the slide developed a crack in it, and so we went to replace the slide. Well, unfortunately, that original slide was no longer available. There were no replacement parts for it, so we had to get a little bit creative in how we had to do it. So it took us a very long time. Again, we had to completely close off that particular piece, and we ended up eventually finding the slide from an old playground set that another municipality had that they were just going to be getting rid of. So our staff did a lot of effort. It was not the correct color, so what happened was our city staff ended up painting it the color that it was supposed to be able to match the purple of the grapes. So again, there was a variety of different things that we've done to attempt to make this so we'll be able to continue. But the playground safety is just indicating that it's no longer possible for us to be able to do so. This piece has been repaired 3 times by the artist and then also twice by the public works staff. It has incurred a variety of different cracks, vandalism. I just talked about the slide replacement. And so there is a number of different things that are incorrect or damaged with it. We spent approximately $64,000 in attempting to maintain it up till this point. But we are now at a point where it is no longer maintainable. So as a result, it was closed in June of 2023 because, again, it no longer conforms to playground safety standards. So next steps is...
I'm sorry, I have to ask another question, and you probably already said this. Had there not been noticeable decay, would it have been inspected, and would this have been an issue?
If there was not noticeable decay,
Yeah.
well, it's always inspected. Playgrounds are inspected on a regular basis. They're required to be. That's part of
Okay,
our
that answers
requirements.
my question.
So it would still have been caught.
Yeah.
Because playground inspections are required. Please don't ask me what that cadence is. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I'm assuming it is a minimum of once a year. But again, I'm not so certain on that.
Wow. And wow.
Robert, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Years ago, I can't remember where we went. We went on a field trip. Do you remember that? We took a bus and we had a little tour with the people that were doing the report. And would it be possible for us to take a little tour in the city bus and go down and actually walk and look at this? Because I can see by this it is in disrepair. And I can see from all the research you've done, it should probably be decommissioned. But is it possible that we could go down and see it?
The great thing is it's right here in the park.
Oh, well, let's go.
It's literally right there.
Right here?
Yeah, it's right here. I don't think we can break our public meeting right now.
No, I don't mean it. I'd like to.
But you are more than welcome after the meeting is finished to be able to take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
However, I don't think we have a choice in this circumstance. I mean, we're welcome to look at it, but if it's a safety issue, I don't think we have a choice.
No, I agree. But I'm just thinking in the future, if we have something come up and we don't set precedence right now on our procedure on voting, that I would like to say that I would always like to be able to see the piece before I decommission and make a vote.
Would you like to try out the slide?
I would.
The slide gives me the heebie-jeebies.
I will say,
Just kidding.
early on in my career, did slide down.
Well, they just did it. You did.
I did. It was fun. I was a little worried I was going to get stuck though, because I don't think it's meant for an adult male. Let's just put it out there.
That's the heebie-jeebies, right? Yeah.
Okay, so next steps, the discussion here at the Public Art Commission and a vote of recommendation. And then ultimately, it will go to the City Council to approve that recommendation. And then once that occurs, the Public Works Department would fully remove the structure. We as city staff, as your public art administrator, would maintain the history of that particular art piece going forward, so we would not lose it. So it would be listed in that inventory that we will be sending you. So it will be listed there in perpetuity. So we wouldn't be missing that or losing that.
And that would be something that the public would also be able to see.
That's
That
correct.
history is always available to the
Correct.
public also.
Yeah, so that history will be available, and again, that will be posted on the public art page of the city's website. So you'll be able to go back and be able to take a look. And that's the intent of once we deaccession an item, that everything would live still on that page. So although it may not exist in a physical form anymore, it will exist in a digital form and people can still go look at it.
Will another playground replace it?
I don't know at this point in time because there's a number of factors and considerations that have to be done. One of the issues is that the proximity to the street. There's actually one of the regulations is you cannot be within 100 feet of the center of a street. And so right now, that is within that 100-foot buffer, so we actually have to move it back a little bit farther should we put in another play structure. But again, that would be something that we believe that, that is something that the city council would weigh in on, should they choose to change that out for another play structure.
I personally would not want to spend our dollars on a playground. I mean, I get why they did it, but with something that's inspected regularly, I don't think it makes sense to be artistic.
And as we go forward with this, one of the things that we have noted is that art pieces that are interactive in this regard have continued to be kind of deaccessioned, if you will, Vinehenge being one of the last ones. In Kit Carson Park, you may remember the sombrero that we had, remember the wagon that we had, and we still have the snake that's there. However, the snake's swing has been removed, so it is just a sculpture piece at this point. It is no longer an interactive piece. We are getting away from doing that level of interactive art.
I have a question. On page 37, you'll note a couple of leaves that look like they're benches. Is that possible to rescue those benches and put them any other place, like in front of our art across the way that's on the building, where we could take those benches and have them reinstalled right over where the mural is, so people can sit and contemplate it?
I would need to work with the Public Works Department to determine whether or not that's something we would be allowed to do. Because again, many things that we have, there are certain standards that we have to follow. And this may be one of those standards, but the Public Works Department would be more suited for answering that question, and I can get that for you.
Thank you.
Is the remainder of the playground going to stay intact? The green slide? Like the playground, part of the playground that's in the background of the photo on page 26.
Yeah, so the orange and brown one, that's...
Is it orange?
Could be. I just have a black and white copy, so I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, it's like back 26.
Yes, so that one in the far back.
So that adheres to safety standards.
That's correct.
And it's like 100 feet away.
Yes, that's
Oh,
correct.
okay.
And that particular play structure is a 5 to 12-year-old play structure. So what we're looking for is if we were to replace this one once it is deaccessioned, they'd be looking to replace it for a preschool type play structure that would be more of an appropriate 3 to 5 kind of level.
Yeah, great. And I do really appreciate all the images in these reports because it gave me my immediate answer. So thank you very much.
I also have to say, I had a lot of good days at Vinehenge, but after reading through the reports and all of the notes from each of these, I also have my answer.
Yeah.
Robert, I know it's going to cost $25,000 to take it down, to decommission it, so anyway, it was like the leaves there, those purple leaves, is it possible to put them, sell them, or to kind of auction them off or something? It might pay for part of it. I mean, there's some pretty interesting pieces and parts of it.
So the city does not actually auction off their own items, and so what happens, those things go to an actual auction house, whether it is a former city vehicle, whether it is like a desk that is still usable or whatever. So those get sent off to a company, and that company is the one that takes care of that. Once that happens, those funds actually get deposited back into our general fund. So they would not be coming back into the public art fund. However, if we were to talk to our public works department and see what might be possible for us to be able to do, whether we kind of repurpose them, if you will, or if there's a way for us to potentially do like an adoption kind of a thing, but with like a for someone to pay for that to be able to adopt those and place it in a certain space. I'm sure that that's something that we could work out. I don't know right now. I can't give you a specific or better answer.
Thank you. It was just a thought.
I think it's great that you guys are thinking about preserving those memories. I think we have to consider the best use of our time and the city employee time too. A lot of that stuff is, you've got metal that's been buried in the ground, and when you take that out, there's very likely deterioration. And how much effort do you put into that? I think that preserving the photographs and making sure that you maintain a catalog of it honors the artist and all of the memories in it. Yeah, like I said, I understand all of the greatness of it, but we need to move on and do good things, in my mind. Do we have more questions? Are we ready for a vote? One more?
I would agree with Commissioner Rogers. Also, like if we catalog these, I specifically remember the vines had a lot of cool little details on them. So making sure to catalog those, because I see they're in a lot of disarray, but making sure those are noted would be.
Good point.
Absolutely, and we will make sure that we do everything to catalog as much as well as we can prior to it being removed.
So do we vote on that?
So my staff recommendation is to recommend to the Public Art Commission that you recommend to the City Council that by intent play structure be session, allowing the Public Works Department to remove it for safety considerations. So that's what you're voting on today.
So I motion to vote to recommend to the city council that we decommission this piece, but remember its memory in Escondido.
Beautifully done. I second that motion.
Open the vote. I vote okay, it's approved 5-0. Claudia's off. Sorry, 6-0. Claudia's off.
And next on the agenda is the Queen Calafia update. Is that correct? Yes.
Yep. So our, as I promised the commission a number of meetings ago, that we would have a standing item to report on Queen Calafia. So this is what we have so far. The numbers for August were not ready or available yet, so we only have July numbers at this point. So there were 10 days with 1,467 visitors by the counter that we have at the site. Keep in mind those parentheses, as I talked about previously, those were the geotagging of phones, and so that we only geotagged 683 phones. But I want to keep that information for you so you kind of have an idea that we are tracking not just the physical people walking with the clicker, but we are also checking with the geotags that come in. There were no private tours in July, and then year to date, we've had 8,726 visitors with 5 private tours. We currently have 23 active docents, 2 brand new docents just recently started, so we're going to be filling in a couple of gaps that we have. The ultimate goal is to move us to an additional Saturday opening, but for right now, they're just filling in a couple of gaps. So we are working towards that. Ultimately, we're just not quite there yet. So some general updates. The online private tour scheduling is now available. It went live last week, so we're very excited about that. It was really nice. So you can be sitting in your PJs at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, I want to go visit Queen Califia. The awesome thing about that is that there is a fee that's associated. It's awesome there's a fee, right? There is a fee that is associated with that, but what's awesome about that fee that's getting associated with that is going directly into an established public art maintenance fund. So
It's designated for the Queen Dome, is it not?
yeah, we will make sure that happens, but that money will be going into that fund. We are working towards a new visitor, we finalized new visitor guidelines, and signage will be going up within the next couple of weeks. There was an issue, I don't know if you were aware of it, late last school year where we had some visitors from kids. Unfortunately, they were not the most well-behaved individuals, and we had to reach out to the school. And so we also, through that process, realized that we did not have any specific visitor guidelines, so we do now. So again, typically do things when something like this comes up.
Are those visitor guidelines, are they on the internet, or
They
are they written somewhere too?
They are. So
Are they on the fence there before you go in?
once we get that signage up, they will be on the fence.
Good idea.
So
Yeah.
Can you repeat how many docents there are totally?
right now we have 23 active docents and then 2 brand new docents.
Okay, Robert, I have one question, and it's probably, might have to be an agenda item, and you can stop me anytime. There's been some issues with the docent scheduling, in that someone would, no one would show up, or something like that. And I know that even my hairdresser, my husband's barber, any kind of volunteer, any kind of notices, goes on something like a lead app or a group me app. And so what I get in this situation would be a text saying you're scheduled for this Saturday, and then I get an email, and the day of, I get another text and email. Is that something the city can do? I know it's dragging those who are, and we've had to close the Queen because of it, and we've also had to, other people had to stay for 4 hours. So, I mean, it just seems like a simple thing that the world out there is doing, that we could make I don't know what you could do with the city, but it just seems like an app that could be done.
I love the idea, and absolutely, but keep in mind those things cost for us to be able to do something like that. And we don't have that ability to be able to do that at this present point in time. But we are.
How do we get the money for that? I mean, right now we're losing docents sometimes because of it, and that creates a problem with people standing at the door and waiting to get in. And so, I mean, it seems like an important issue to me.
Absolutely, it is an important issue. We do want that Queen open at any time it's available to be open. That we said it will be open, with the exception of inclement weather.
Yeah, without physically calling somebody every time and taking someone's time to do that. It's just, are they really that expensive?
We have not looked into them, so I want to be clear, I haven't looked into them, but there is, I'm just saying there's a cost associated with those types of things.
Okay.
So it's not something that is budgeted for at this point in time. That is something that we can look at potentially when the next budget cycle comes around.
If you have an online scheduling tool for tours, there might be a docent option in there for you if it has a reminder function.
We can look into it.
Yeah, because maybe it's something you already have. You're trying to get through your presentation here, but we'll just keep asking questions.
Go ahead.
It says docent information binder and welcome packet being updated/created. Is this something that has information to drive people to other art bring them downtown, bring them into town?
So it's my understanding the information that's being developed and updated has come from Marty Tiedemann. And so what we're trying to do is just simply be able to create a binder packet, not just for the individuals that come in. It's not necessarily one of those things that are like for everybody to be able to be handed out. It's not like that pamphlet we talked about as a part of your annual work plan. It is information that's specific to the docents, and then that within that information, there would be, I would assume, because I don't know, I don't oversee that specific program, but there would be information directing them to other art pieces, specifically by Nikki, to the downtown area, as well as a number of our other art pieces that we have as well. To say, hey, if you haven't been to Escondido, Escondido is an incredible art hub, and please come and see what we have, type of thing.
Places to eat on that would be excellent. I mean, people are always asking me to come in from San Diego or just out of town and to see the art. Well, they have more of this. We go to the art center and just different places. We have art so they can get them downtown, but also places that would be, somewhere we could get them here to shop and eat.
Absolutely, and that's part of our economic development friends. We'd be able to guide them to like our Visit Escondido website that would have all of that information. And then lastly, the staff will be taking a visit down to the Nikki Charitable Art Foundation on September 26th. We're going to be engaging in some conversation because I have not met anybody down there. I've been in this role for 9 months now, and so it'd be great to actually see what they have and have those conversations and start developing and building those relationships. So that's what we're going to be doing. Any other questions?
Is that for the commission or is that just the?
Just specifically for the staff right now.
Okay.
If you would like an opportunity to go down to visit, we can definitely set something up.
I would love it. I think the commission needs to see it. I've been there and it's just mind-blowing.
Thank you for that, Robert. And let's see, staff liaison report is next.
Cool. I can do that too. Home stretch. Here we go. As I mentioned, the Public Art Strategic Plan goes to the City Council next week on September 18th. I will be presenting with Commissioner Rogers, and I would definitely invite all of you to be in attendance to voice your support specifically for this plan and all of the work and effort that you have put into this, which is utterly incredible, and you've done a fantastic and phenomenal job at being able to coalesce all of the ideas from the community into one document. So,
And the council meeting is at 5 p.m., correct?
that is correct. The next item is the Escondido Expressions Call for Artists. We are just putting the final touches on that. That cannot go out until the plan is fully adopted by the City Council. So our intention is to put it out by Thursday or Friday of next week. As soon as they vote and say, yay, we love it. And we're going to be like, yay, great, here, we're going to do a call for artists. The great thing is that we can still adhere to the original timeline that we established for those projects, which means that it will be out for 3 to 4 weeks for that call. We will have a 2-week period of time in which we will be able to do public input. Then from there, the subcommittee will meet to have a conversation about the selected art pieces. And then from there, it will go to come before this full commission at the November meeting to be able to approve and move forward. And then again, the December timeframe is when our team starts putting together all of those documents that are required, so all that administrative stuff. And then the process can get started with that painting starting in the new year.
That's great.
How is that call going out?
So the way that we're going to do it is we're going to be posting it on the city's website, so the art page that we have. Also be sending it out to each one of you as the commissioners to share with your specific network. And there was, I believe, believe Commissioner Rogers, you were the one that shared with us the national call. We will be looking at that as a potential, although this seems to be more of a local kind of
Yeah.
thing because it's so small, but we will still look at that.
Will there be press release, something to put it in the local newspaper too,
Yes.
perhaps?
With the Times Advocate to make sure it's in
Okay.
the paper as well.
But national? Yes, you're interested in national, putting it out nationally?
There's no cost associated with it, I don't think, is there?
Not to my knowledge.
Just the question is, would an artist travel for, what is the stipend, $500, $600?
Yeah. So when you present this to the council, city council, are you also presenting the application?
The application will be in the call for artists. So the public art strategic plan is what's getting presented to the council, and the Escondido Expressions is a part of that. But they will not actually see the call for artists because that's more administrative.
Okay.
I actually did some dimensions on the box because, as you know, the old application doesn't have an accurate ratio on the box. So we need new drawings on the size of the box.
So each of those boxes are pretty individualized. It would be the responsibility of the artist to determine what that looks like. We have, the way that we've done it is we have given the specific intersection that they would be working with a geotagged location. So if they're interested in that specific one, we also have a note stating that it was their responsibility to go out and to be able to appropriately size that box.
Into a drawing. Great, with all four sides and the top. Then also, there was discussion on the artist at work.
Yes, and that's actually something that's listed in the call for artists. And so they will need to come to pick up the primer as well as the frame sign indicating that there is work being done by an artist at that point in time that is commissioned by the Public Art Commission.
So if we have two artists, let's say, working at the same time, will we have more than one just sign?
Absolutely. I think we can actually accommodate up to 3 artists working at the same time. Because we do have 15 boxes, we're doing our best to spread those out appropriately over a period of time, so not everybody's doing it all at once. So our team will be working with each of the artists administratively to determine and identify what those time periods would actually be.
Right, because when we start painting in November, usually the heat wave is intense, is starting to fade, but then we're headed towards rain possibly, so we'll be delayed somewhat. And hopefully we'll be able to continue until we hit the heat wave again. And that brings me to heat wave. If we pass this time period of the boxes not blinking because of the heat, putting the traffic lights at blink, when will we know? That be a city council call on that?
That's our Public Works Department. And we are moving forward as if there is no issues right now. And I've not heard anything from our Public Works team, so no news is good news.
Great. Fingers crossed. Thank you, Robert. You did a great job supporting this. Appreciate it.
Sure.
One question, Robert, over here. Call for artists also on social media?
Yes, absolutely. That would be like a really big one too, because we want to reach a very wide portion of our community. So it doesn't necessarily have to be artists, because we're looking at, I'm going to say different artists. I guess anybody in the community can do it. But what I'm looking to get is for those people that might be interested in stepping into that realm. Maybe it's the first time they've ever done it, especially like student artists. So we will also be sending it out to our contacts at the schools as well, because I would love to give those students an opportunity to step into that realm.
Would that include schools at the Valley Center?
I would not be planning to do that because this is local to Escondido. We would stick with Escondido. although there are a couple of boxes with theme that are specific
Yes.
for our local tribes, so we will be also reaching out to those tribes as well.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. The Escondido Creek Trail project and the Grand Avenue project, and we kind of lump those together. The reason why is because the public art strategic plan has been pushed back so far, we will not be on the same timeline that we normally are for, let's say, the Escondido expressions. And so that is definitely being pushed back. I can tell you that at the August 28th meeting, the Escondido Creek Trail project was assigned a construction company as well as a construction management company. So they are starting that process. They anticipate construction to begin as early as kind of the January timeframe. We would be working with the construction management company to put together a timeline and our call for artists. We anticipate our call for artists to go out specifically for the Escondido Creek Trail project within that period of time, as well as the Grand Avenue project. That might be a little bit more delayed until the early spring, however, because the construction for the Grand Avenue project actually starts September 30th, so at the end of this particular month. And that one's going to require a little bit more technical skills that I'm going to need to bring in our engineering department to determine how much space, what electricity that we have there, the type of footings that potentially might be needed depending on the project and so on. So that one will be a little bit later, and then likely that would probably have to fall into, and it doesn't have to, but it could potentially just be a carryover to your next annual work plan. You look like Commissioner Rogers, you look like you have a question.
No, well, I'm a little disappointed that it would be pushed off that long. I guess I understand, and if I understand the timeline on the Grand Avenue Vision project, they're doing the roundabouts last? Is that what I heard?
They're doing it in 3 phases.
Yeah.
And the roundabout is I think it's the second phase actually, but I'm not totally certain on that. The real issue for us is the capacity to be able to do these very large scale call for artists.
Right,
And
right.
so considering that neither myself nor Sandra has done either one of these before, we are going to be heavily relying on our contacts over in some of our other municipalities to be able to support us in figuring out how do we do kind of those call for artists.
The contractor should be able to help us with some of the footings and space
Absolutely.
information, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But we still need to make sure that we get the basics down correctly. And so that's going to involve a variety of different departments. It's not just our engineering team. It's not just the construction management team. It's also potentially our finance department because it's such a large call. So there is potentially a procurement issue. There's also the city attorney's office to make sure that we have appropriate legal language. So there's a lot.
It's a significant project, and we absolutely shouldn't rush it. I totally understand. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple of updates on the Art Speaks from the Escondido Community Foundation. As you recall, you approved 3 specific items. One is Threshold 5, which will be going to Carson Park. It's like, I described it more as like a portal kind of a thing, really cool. And that actually is going to be coming back before you on the November meeting. The artist is actually going to be requesting that be included into our permanent collection rather than being temporary. So you will hear a presentation on that in November. The way that will more specifically work is that we will then direct staff, which is myself and my team, to investigate including that in our public and in our permanent collection. Once that is, we will come back to you then in January with what our recommendation is, and that's when we vote whether or not you want to move it into our permanent collection or if you want to keep it as part of your the temporary collection. So that is coming up. We also have the library mural. The library mural right now is being worked on with the artist. The artist has, we have requested that the artist go back to the tribal organization to determine that there's the accuracy and appropriateness of the work that he's planning on doing. It sounds like there's a possibility that also may come back to you if it is changed. Because we want to make sure that it is, that you have approved it and you're good with whatever change they have done to make sure it's accurate and appropriate. As a part of this process, we are requesting that a tribal authority provide us with documentation that this is appropriate and for the artist to be able to place on a public building. So that's a little bit more of a hold up for that particular one. The last item was the...
Robert?
Yes.
Are you going to request this same documentation from any artwork that's done under the Expressions project that is represented as Native American?
Yes, we are also looking at that as well. And then the last item is the Escondido Creek Trail mural. And so that one will likely be moving forward sometime in the coming months based on our interactions with the contractor. So again, the contractor was just hired, and so we will be interfacing with them very shortly to move that specific project forward. The last item that I have is the ceremonial unveiling of the student mural from UHSD, and that will be happening on September 21st at 10 a.m. at Washington Park. And there's just the invitation that's right there on the screen. So, that is it for my report. Just to let you know that we do have a couple of other projects that are still outstanding as far as from the previous year. The Hummingbird project will be starting October 1st, and the Velas Rosas mural will be starting anytime now if it has not already started. He's been given the go-ahead to be able to do that. So those are the two outstanding projects that we have this week.
Wonderful, thank you. Any more questions? Future agenda items? No? We're adjourned.